would like to dedicate the shiur in help of Liora Bat Miriam, Menashe Naji Ben Paha, Rav Moshe Ben Bayabatia, Rav Moshe Ben Deborah, Rav Shlomo Yehuda Ben Dalia, Rav Yitzhak Ben Yamna, Avraham Yitzhak Ben Rav Avraham Ben Marina, Rav Shimon Tion Ben Hana, Dvora Bat Esther, Sheina Keila Bat Hana, Mordechai David Ben Leah, Yehuda Hillel Ben Shulamit Leah, Chaim Nachum Ben Pesach Reza Kohen, Baruch Ben Sarah Hiena, Yehuda Ben Eliezer, Meir Ben Yehuda, Gabriel Ben Chaya Sheina Leah, Pesach Yitzhak Ben Ela, Ayala Eden Bat Rivka, Tzvi Ben Chava, Malka Bat Rachel, Yael Bat Dorit, Orna Bluma Bat Miriam. Please God, refuah shlema to all of them, velechol chole amo Yisrael. Rabotai, we're going to continue with the book of Samuel, the prophet Samuel. We reach to chapter 25. I'm just going to do quick revision on chapter 24, just to tell us what's happened. And we continue with chapter 25. At the beginning of chapter 24, immediately after David HaMelech, when the Plishtim in a city of Keilah, okay, him and his men immediately fled to En-Gedi, south of Israel. We also learn that Shaul HaMelech heard that David HaMelech and his men are in En-Gedi, and he immediately gone down to search for them. We also explained that Shaul HaMelech, while he was searching from cave to cave, he entered one cave, and he saw spider webs. And he realized that no one will be in a cave, because if someone going through the cave, he will break that spider web. And we explained that was a miracle. He came to release himself, and David HaMelech quietly came behind them and cut the corner of his garment, or if you want to call it ma'il. Ma'il is a coat that he have, and returned back to the end of the cave without Shaul HaMelech even noticing. When Shaul HaMelech left the cave and he took a distance, David HaMelech and his men came out of the cave, and David HaMelech said to Shaul HaMelech, look, I could kill you, but I didn't kill you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu given you in my hand, I didn't kill you, because you're king. And he rebuked David HaMelech, rebuked Shaul HaMelech, and he showed him the piece. He said to him, look at your coat, look at your jacket, it's been cut. That piece is with me, I could kill you easily. In the end, we explained that Shaul HaMelech, when he heard what David HaMelech had to say, he realized that he was wrong, because David HaMelech said to him, you're listening to too much gossiping. Too much gossiping. Therefore, please don't listen to those. I have nothing against you. I'm your servant. And in the end, we explained that Shaul HaMelech said to David HaMelech, I knew that you deserve to be the king on the Jewish people, and you will be the king. And Shaul HaMelech in the end asked David HaMelech, please promise me that you're not going to kill my descendants. And that's how it's ends, basically, chapter number 24. In the chapter 25, it's called Naval HaKarmeli. If we're given a headline to that chapter, it's called Naval HaKarmeli v'Avigail, but more Naval HaKarmeli. And we see what's happening here. It's basically have nothing to do, that chapter, anymore with Shaul, but we'll explain what's happening. וימות שמואל, ויקבצו כל ישראל, ויספדו לו, ויקברוהו בביתו ברמה, ויקום דוד וירד אל מדבר פרן.
Right. Samuel died, and all of Israel gathered and eulogized him, and they buried him at his home in Ramah.
Okay.
David arose and descended to the wilderness of Paran.
Okay, sorry about going. What's happening here? The prophet tells us, he tells us that he died. And we have to understand how come that the prophet tell us in the middle of the book that he died. We have to understand what's happening here. The prophet Samuel died 7 months before Shaul HaMelech, King Saul. 7 months before. But there is a secret. Why is the prophet tell us that story? We have to understand what's happening here. The prophet tell us that everyone gather around and they eulogize for him. And David HaMelech was there. He came also. At the beginning, the men of David HaMelech tried to convince him not to go because it's dangerous. Maybe Shaul gonna see him and gonna kill him. But David HaMelech say, I've been anointed by the prophet Samuel, I have to go to his funeral. David HaMelech stood at the side, and when the eulogizing finished immediately, he left and he ran down to Midbar Paran. Midbar Paran, it's further south than En Gedi, a little bit further south. It's called Paran, there's an area that's called Paran. But the question is, and we have to understand why the prophet tell us in his own book that he wrote that he died. The Radak. Radak is a commentary that's been written by Rabbi David Kimhi. That is Ackerman. He born in France 865 years ago. And he explained that the main reason that we're reading here about the death of Shaul, that the prophet Samuel who wanted to tell us that he wanted to hear in his own ears that King Saul, okay, will say to David HaMelech and will agree that he will be the next king. That's there we explain the Radak, Rabbi David Kimhi. The Mahari Kara, Rabbi Yosef Kara, he born in France, he born 960 years ago. He explained that the main reason that the death of the prophet mentioned here, it's to tell us something very important. It's to tell us that Shaul, okay, when Shaul was a king, David HaMelech looked at himself like, not like a king. He is a king, but he never been appointed now to act as a king. He been anointed as a king, there's a big difference, but he's not acting as a king. And as long that the prophet Samuel was alive, David HaMelech didn't push himself, okay, to become a king. But it's the Mari Karase that we'll read that later on, David HaMelech wanted to kill Naval HaKarmeli. We'll explain who's Naval HaKarmeli in the show. The Mefarshim explains something else. Our sages explain, we'll read about it in chapter 28, that how can it be that the entire Jewish people eulogizing for the prophet Samuel, and there's one man, his name is Naval HaKarmeli. We'll explain why they call him Naval HaKarmeli. And he celebrating on a burial, on a yahrzeit, on a day that they're burying Prophet Samuel. You celebrating? What's happening here? And then it said, Vayered David Midbar Paran. We explained that David ran immediately down to Midbar Paran, the Metzudot David, Rabbi David Altshela. He born in Galicia 338 years ago. Also the Malbin. Malbin was Rabbi Michael Lebush Ben Yehiel Michal Weiser. He born in the Ukraine 216 years ago. They both explain something extraordinary. You know why David HaMelech, now that they make peace basically between him and Shaul, he still didn't stand in En Gedi? David HaMelech said, listen, I'm now in Givat Shaul, where they bury Prophet Samuel. I need to go back to Ein Gedi. On the way, there's a chance that people will see me, and they're loyal to King Saul. They want to take revenge, and they still don't know that me and King Saul make peace. Therefore, David HaMelech said, not only that I'm going to change, me and my man going to change our camp to a different place. We're going to move to a different place. I don't want to have any fights anymore. And that's why David HaMelech gone down to Midbar Paran, the Mefarshim explain. And verse 2, and here we're starting to read about Naval, and we're going to spend a bit of time. Ve'ish b'ma'on, ומעשהו בכרמל, והאיש גדול מאוד, ולא צאן 3,000 ו1,000 עזים, ויהי בגוז צאנו בכרמל.
There was a man in Ma'on whose business was in Carmel. The man was very wealthy. He owned 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. It carries on to say, and the following ones happened at the shearing of his sheep in Carmel.
Okay. In that day that they buried, in the same day that they buried the prophet Samuel, Naval decided to shear his flock. When they used to shear the flock, it was a Yom Tov for them. People make it as a celebrating day. Hazal tell us was a man b'Ma'on. Ma'on is a place in the south, very close. Rabotai, listen to me. It's very close to Ashdod, little bit further than Ashdod. And Carmel, it's very south towards Yam HaMelech, okay? Towards the area of Yam HaMelech and Gedi. Okay. And he have a business. What does it mean he have a business? All of it, the business that he had, the main business in daytime, it was a flock. And he had shepherds, and they used to look after his fortune of flock that he had, as we hear, that he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. That's just in Carmel. And what's happened here? The prophet tell us that the man his business was in a Carmel. What does it mean Carmel? We have to understand the word Carmel. He lived in Ma'on. Ma'on is very close to Ashdod or Kiryat Gat, that area more towards Kiryat Gat. And Carmel was in the south, just above En Gedi, that area, in a Judean desert. And Carmel means Kar Maleh. What's a Kar Maleh? He explained that he had a place that's full of grain. That means that we learn from here that Naval Carmeli had another business. Besides flock and goats, he had another business. What was his other business? Other business was that he had a lot of grain in an area that there's a lot of grain that they used to plant. And Mother Ish Gadol Me'od, a big rich man, that's the prophet described to us that on that shearing day, that was a Yom Tov. For them, it was a Yom Tov. They used to make a big feast of it, a big party when they used to shear the flock. And Naval Carmeli was very rich. We have to understand why is the prophet putting so much emphasis on that Naval was rich? What difference does it make if he was rich or not? We'll see now in verse 3 and 4 as we go along. Veshem Ish, listen, now the prophet tell us about this man. Veshem Ish Naval, Veshem Ishto Abigail, והאישה טובת שכל, ויפת תואר, והאיש קשה ורע מעללים, והוא כליבי.
Right. Right. The man's name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. The woman was intelligent and beautiful, but the man was difficult and an evildoer. He was a descendant of Caleb.
Okay. The prophet told us here, and he described, and he telling us the name of the man, Naval. As you hear Naval in Hebrew, whoever understand a little bit of Hebrew will understand immediately that we're dealing not with a nice man here. Naval in Hebrew is a crook. Okay? The name of his wife was Abigail. But the prophet tell us the two different character trait, the opposite character trait that there is between the husband and wife. The wife is a very smart woman and a nice looking woman. That's mean physically and spiritually, while the husband is a difficult man. That all of his deeds is evil deeds. The Malbim explained that Naval couldn't do nothing good to anyone. In his nature, he couldn't do nothing good to any person. He was an evil man. The Mahari Kara explained that the main reason that the prophet tell us about those two different character traits between the husband and the wife, between Nabal and Abigail, to teach us something very important, that Abigail all the time was fixing the mistake that Nabal done. She all the time was trying to help him and cover for his mistake. We explained, and as beautifully Jeffrey read for us, that he was from the tribe of Caleb. Who was Caleb? From which tribe? The tribe of Yehuda. The tribe of Yehuda, if I'm not mistaken, David HaMelech also was, because he's from, who we say? Ishai. Ishai was from Avad. Avad was from Boaz. Boaz was from the tribe of Yehuda. That means that was a relative connection between David HaMelech and Naval. The Ralbag, Rabbi Levy ben Gershom, he born in France. He born 737 years ago. In his commentary, he explained that why did they call him Kelabi? What does it mean Kelabi? He said that he was wicked like a bad dog. Because if you look, Vehu kolbo, מה זה kolbo? Say the Mefarshim that we must call it Kelabi. מה זה Kelabi? Like he was from the descendants of Kalev ben Yefune. Kalev was from the tribe of Yehuda. Come the Ralbag and say, that's all fine. But you have to understand why they didn't say Kalev ben Yefune. Because Naval was like a bad dog. He was evil like a bad dog. When we read the Mefarshim, we can understand what the prophet tried to tell us. Let's go to now, I would like to read verse 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. It's usually I don't do that. It's a long verses, And I'll tell you why, because I summarize and we'll see what's happening here. I think I'm going to read it quickly and then Jeffrey going to read it beautifully. וישמע דוד במדבר כי גוזז נבל את שונו, וישלח דוד 10 נערים. ויאמר דוד לנערים, עלו כרמלה, ובאתם אל נבל, ושאלתם בשמי לשלום, ואמרתם כה לחי, ואתה שלום, וביתך שלום, וכל אשר לך שלום, ואתה שמעתי כי גוזזים לך, אתה רועים אשר לך, היו עמנו, הם נחלמנו, ולא נפקד להם מאומה. כל ימי היותם בכרמל, שאל את נעריך ויגידו לך, וימצאו הנערים חן בעיניך, כי על יום טוב בנו תננה נא, את אשר תמצא ידך לעבדיך ולבנך דוד.
Oh. So David sent 10 attendants, and David said to the attendants, go up to Carmel and approach Nabal, inquiring after his welfare in my name, and say, such successful life, peace be upon you, peace be upon your household, and peace be upon all that is yours. And now I have heard that they are shearing for you. Now your shepherds stayed with us, and we did not shame them, and they did not lack anything all the days they were in Carmel. Ask your attendants, and they will tell you. Therefore, let my attendants find favor in your eyes. We have come because of your celebration. Please give whatever you can to your servants and to your son, to David.
Look, David HaMelech, when he spoke about his name, he says servant. When he spoke about himself, how did David HaMelech call him your son? Because David HaMelech, after all, is a man, but David was humble. We explain on a shi'ur of Parashat HaShavua, Va'ish Moshe Anav Me'od Moshe, and then it's Anav Me'od. מה זה מאוד? What it means מאוד? We explain that the word מאוד is acronym Moshe, Abraham, David. Was 3 humble people. Abraham Avinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, and then David HaMelech. And David HaMelech here doesn't want to show, doesn't speak to him like he's a king. He said to him, I'm your son, your servant. He called his man, but himself he called a man. What is David HaMelech said to him? He greeted him, he blessed him. And then he said, Ko lechai. מה זה ko lechai? Ko lechai. Say Rashi HaKadosh, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, he born in a city of Troa 985 years ago. He said that David HaMelech blessed Naval, that the same like you sharing your flock now, you will continue to do it next year, please God, with the same amount. That's not short. David HaMelech sending 10 of his men. We said that with David HaMelech was 600 people. David HaMelech sent 10 to ask Naval to tell him, listen, we are hungry. We are in a wilderness. We know that you're doing a big feast. Please give your men to David HaMelech and his men, give us some food. That's David HaMelech saying to his 10 men. He actually now explaining to them how to approach Naval. The Malbim say that David HaMelech, although that he had war, and all of his war that he had with Shaul, it was all the time in a Judean desert. David HaMelech knew it very well, because that's where he, I would say, half of his life lived. Because until the age of 28, his father his brothers, we explained, was thinking that he's a mamzer. So they sent him where? To the wilderness, that Judean desert. And they was hoping that a wild beast will kill him. So David HaMelech, when he escaped from Shaul, he gone to a territory that he know, and that was in the south of Israel. And here David HaMelech basically explaining to his men to tell Naval HaKarmeli, listen, your business was in a Carmel, but you live in Ma'on. It's a different, completely different area. But while your shepherd was in the south, we used to protect them. We used to look after them. We used to make sure that nothing they was short. If they needed anything, we always helped them. We always looked after your shepherd. Whatever they needed, we helped them. We never asked for money. We never asked for reward. People can steal some of your flock. People easily can hijack some of your flock. We always guarded what belonged to you. Please say it to Naval HaKarmeli. Rashi HaKadosh explained, when it was, when did Naval HaKarmeli decide to make that feast?
Samuel's death.
Erev Rosh Hashanah. Erev Rosh Hashanah. Look at Rashi. The Ralbag explained that because it was a Yom Tov, look how the Ralbag, Rabbi Levy ben Gershon, explained. He said, because it was a Yom Tov, so Naval HaKarmeli not only that make a big feast for that, he have to cook also for Yom Tov. And because he was so rich, and he makes so much food, it will be nothing to feed David HaMelech and his men. It will be nothing for him to feed them. And that's why David HaMelech decided, Dafka on the time, to send his men to ask for a little bit of food to make them alive, to keep them alive in the wilderness. And verse 9, look what it said. Vayavo na'arei David. Now the prophet explained that the men of David actually coming to Naval. Look what's happened now. ויבואו נערי דוד וידברו אל נבל ככל הדיבורים האלה בשם דוד וינוחו.
David's attendants came and spoke in accordance with all the words to Nabal in David's name, and then rested.
Okay. Here the prophet tells us that David HaMelech's men come and they're arriving in the Carmel when Naval, and they're saying to him what David HaMelech told them to say. Rashi HaKadosh explained that David HaMelech means was very tired. Therefore, they sit and they rest. Also explain the what do you call it, Rashi, that the journey, that they was tired from the journey that they have to go to the Carmel. But the Targum explained that, you know why what does it mean that they rested? The Targum explained, they told him what David HaMelech said, and they didn't say anything. Now they waited to hear what Naval gonna answer them. The Ralbag explained what it means now, that they spoke with them benachat. They spoke with them very calmly. And we have to understand why all of that, the Mefarshim go on a lot of emphasis and put a lot of emphasis on that the servant or the man of David was rested. What does mean rested? We explained that they spoke nicely to him. Some explained that after they spoke to him, they waited for them to say to give them the answer. In verse 10 and 11, we'll see what's happened here. And 10, and now Naval answering them. ויען נבל את עבדי דוד, ויאמר, מי דוד? ומי בן ישי? היום רבו העבדים המתפרצים, איש מפני אדוניו, ולקחתי את לחמי ואת מימי ואת טפחתי אשר טבחתי, וגוזזי ונתתי לאנשים אשר לא ידעתי, אם מזה המה.
Naval replied to David's servants and said, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? These days, the rebellious servants have increased, each against his master. Should I take from my bread and my water and my meat that I have slaughtered for my shearers and give them to men about whose origin I do not know?"
What's happening here, origin that I don't know. You'll see now how Naval was a wicked. Naval, when the servant of David finished to talk, Naval started shouting. He opened his filthy mouth against
David,
the man of David. And he starts saying to him, who is David? Who's Ben Ishai? What does it mean? Who's David? Who's Ben Ishai? The Mefarshim explained that he said to him, who David? He didn't call him King David. David. Who David think he is? Okay. Who him to tell me what to do? With my meat, with the food that I worked on it hard. Rashi HaKadosh explained that he actually now speaks in a very derogatory way. He said, you know, who is David? You know who's David? Who's Ben Ishai? They came from Ruth Moaviyah, Ruth the Moabite. The Malbin explained that Naval said to the man of David, you know who's David? He come, Has v'shalom, from a family that we have to look after them if they're even Jewish. He's not a royal king. He's not from the royal family. Who is David? That's how we speak to them. In verse 12, we see something here that we have to understand. But before, I just want to add up one thing. He said to the servant that today there's many people that they used to be slave and now they want to be king. That means that he called David HaMelech a slave. Huh? David HaMelech, you call him slave, he'd been anointed. Naval HaKarmeli didn't have respect for no one. Not only that, you know what he said? He said, that man rebelled. He's a servant. He rebelled against his own king. He's referring to King Saul. Look how badly he speak about David HaMelech. In verse 12, ויהפכו נערי דוד לדרכם וישובו, ויבואו ויגידו לו ככל הדברים האלה.
David's attendants turned around to their way, and they went back, arrived, and reported to him in accordance with all these words.
Here the prophet telling us that after he humiliated them, they kept quiet, they didn't answer him. Here you see the quality of the man of David. They kept quiet, they turned around, and go back to David. The Malbin explained,
No food, no
and
nothing.
here there is a mahloket. The Malbim explained that Naval didn't even give him something to eat.
Yeah.
Although some of the Mefarshim say that he did give them something to eat to those men. When they came to him, he gave them first food. According to the Malbim, he didn't give them nothing. Naval Carmeli basically saying to the servant of David that he refused to give them food. I don't want to give you food. I don't know why you're coming here. Go back to David and tell him I'm not giving you nothing. And that's what they done. In verse 13, ויאמר דוד לאנשיו, חיגרו איש את חרבו, ויחגרו איש את חרבו, ויחגור גם דוד את חרבו. ויעלו אחרי דוד כ400 איש, ו200 ישבו על הכלים.
David said to his men, each man gird his sword. Each man girded his sword, and David too girded his sword. About 400 men went after David, and 200 others stayed with the belongings.
Okay. In this verse, we see that David HaMelech now basically telling his men, each man, please, put your holster, and I want you to carry the sword inside your holster. That's pshat of the dvarim. But look what it said. ויאמר דוד לאנשיו, David said to his men, חיגרו איש חרבו. Said the Mefarshim, David HaMelech here, with his men, done din Torah. Is that man deserve dead, the punishment of death or not? Why? Because what Naval done, הוא מורד במלכות, rebel against the king. Not only that he despised the king, ביזה את המלך, embarrassed the king, in the front of his servant. So David HaMelech said to his men, let's do din Torah. Once that everyone agree, and they put the sword, what is the prophet say? And in the end, David HaMelech put the sword. Usually, when there is a war, the king go first. He is to lead. David HaMelech done here din Torah, said the Mefarshim. You learn from here. By that it's mentioned that David HaMelech also took his sword in the end, that only after David HaMelech heard from his Beit Din that Naval deserved the punishment of death, only then he put his sword and was ready to go with his men towards the Carmel. But something very interesting it said that. It say here that David HaMelech from his took with him 400 men, and 200 men left behind to look after the vessel. ישבו על הכלים. What it means, ישבו על הכלים? If David HaMelech couldn't leave the camp completely empty, where he is, the tent, they have food, they have clothes, they have certain. He left 200 men to look after the camp, and him and another 400 men now marching towards the Carmel. Okay? In verse 14, look what's happened. ולאביגיל אשת נבל הגיד נער אחד מהנערים לאמור. הנה שלח דוד מלאכים מהמדבר לברך את אדוננו ויעט בהם.
One young man from the attendants told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, "Behold, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, and he drove them off."
What it means he drove them off? Vayat bahem. We'll explain what happened here. One of the guys that was in a meeting, that saw the meeting between the 10 men of David and Naval Carmeli, saw what happened between Naval, how Naval actually get rid of those 10 men. We'll explain now. And he decided, you know what? I need to go and tell Abigail, because I know my master. He's Ra'ma Alalim, a wicked person. And immediately, why did he say it, said the Mefarshim? Because he realized that with David HaMelech you can't play. David HaMelech is a king. You can't play with David HaMelech. And he realized that David HaMelech, when he gonna hear what Naval done to him, he's gonna come and he's gonna kill everyone. So immediately he ran to who? To the wife, Abigail. And he said to her, David HaMelech sent his men to bless your husband. But instead, your husband embarrassed them. And vayat bahem. מה זה vayat bahem? Yat, it's mishon ait, to fly. Your husband embarrassed them and he get rid of them like you get rid of the fly. That means that here we see that the people realize what's going to happen, and Naval didn't realize. Naval was so deaf, so stupid, even to understand that he done wrong. He couldn't understand.
Consequences, yeah.
He didn't understand what he done. In verse 15 and 16, we're going to read them together, we'll see something very interesting. ואנשים טובים, he continue and tell, and the man is good, we'll see. טובים לנו מאוד, ולא החלימונו, ולא פגדונו מאומה. כל ימי התהלכנו איתם בהיותנו בשדה. חומה היו לנו, עלינו גם בלילה, גם יומם. כל ימי הביתנו עמהם רועים צאן.
These men were very good to us. We were not shamed, nor were we lacking anything all the days that we traveled with them when we were in the field. They were a protective wall over us, both by night and by day. All the days we were with them, tending the sheep.
Here, one of those men, the younger man, I don't know how you want to call him, of Naval Carmeli, the youngest shepherd, let's call him, I think that's the right word, continue and saying to Abigail, let me tell you about David HaMelech and his men. David HaMelech and his men all the time looked after us. They provide for us. Whatever we needed, we asked them to provide for us. They never ask us for money. They guard us that no one going to steal from the flock of your husband. They never ask for money. As long that we was in a wilderness with a flock, there was like a surrounding wall around us that no one can harm us. No wild beasts, no robbers, no hijackers. Those men was good to us and never asked for anything. We have to understand why that young man saying it. That young man realized that if David HaMelech getting to the Carmel, everyone's dead. Except, obviously, the shepherd, if they're not going to try to get involved. But the descendants of Naval Carmeli, finished. And he cared. So he gone to Abigail and told her, listen, your husband is wrong. Your husband is actually a wicked man. Why? The Mefarshim explained that he himself was worried. That young man, that shepherd was worried. Although that his master feed him, he said to her, your husband is a wicked man. Let's look at verse 17. And in verse 17 it says like this, ואתה, דעי וראי מה תעשי, כי קלטה רעה אל אדוננו, ועל כל ביתו, והוא בן בליעל מדבר אליו.
And now be aware and determine what to do. For the evil decree has been made final against our master and against his entire household. And he himself is too base a person even to talk to.
Okay. Here, the youngster saying to her, listen, I'm speaking to you because I know what's going to happen. Because your husband, by that he embarrassed David and he called him Ben Belial. The Malbim say that Naval HaKarmeli called David HaMelech Ben Belial. That means, I don't know how you say it in English, Ben Belial. Jeffrey, how you call it, Ben Belial?
Without...
and he's a son without?
Heritage? Without...
I don't know how they call it here. The word Ben Belial, it's a very difficult word for me to translate.
Who is he
You want to
referring to
read
as
it
Ben
again?
Belial?
Read it again.
Who is he referring to as Ben Belial?
To David the Melech. Read verse 17. Let's read verse 17 again.
I'm sorry, Rabbi. Unscrupulous, normally.
Unscrupulous.
Unscrupulous. No scruples. No.
No scruple. Oh, yes.
No scruples.
Got no etiquette. Got nothing. Rotten.
No, nothing. Yeah, he's a base. He's a base.
Thanks, Mona.
Say, that young shepherd said to Abigail, listen, your husband called the king. He embarrassed him. He called him nothing. Do you know what that means? That means that we're going to have soon a big headache here. You have to do something about it. If not, when David HaMelech is here, it's finished. He's going to do an end to all of that headache. Your husband put us in a situation, and his household, because he called the king Ben Belial. That means, said the Malbim, that Naval had the audacity to call David HaMelech Ben Belial.
What he is.
Yeah, exactly. The Mahari Kara explained that Naval, that the Mahari Kara explained that the shepherd telling Abigail, you know, your husband never bothered even to speak to David. If he wanted something, he always used to send us to talk to him, like send messenger. He never showed respect to David HaMelech. Okay? Why? Because your husband is a nothing. And he called David HaMelech nothing. Do you understand? And what situation we are? We are in dire straits. Please think how to sort up that situation. We see from here that the stupidity of Naval get rid of the man and he forgot about it. He forgot that he embarrassed the king in the front of his men. He not only that didn't thank them for what they done for them, He actually gets rid of them like you get rid of a fly. You know, when people irritate from a fly, but they get rid of him. He said, like this, he chased them away. So now we see that the shepherd told Abigail, listen, you have to do something about it. At the beginning, what is the prophet say? That Abigail was Isha Chachama, a smart woman. Now, in verse 18 and 19, we see why the prophet said that she's smart. And look what he said. ותמהר אביגיל, ותיקח 200 לחם, ו2 נבלי יין, ו5 צאן, ו5 שאים קלי, ו200 צימוקים, ו200 דבלים, ותשם על החמורים, ותאמר לנעריה, עברו לפניי, הנני אחריכם בא, ולאישה נבל לא הגידה.
Right. So Abigail hurried and took 200 breads, 2 containers of wine, 5 cooked sheep, 5 seahs of toasted grain, 100 raisin clusters, and 200 cakes of pressed figs. And she put them on the donkeys. She said to her attendants, go ahead of me. Behold, I am coming behind you. But she did not tell Nabal, her husband.
What happened? Abigail was a very clever woman. She realized every second here, it's matter of a life or death. If David HaMelech coming to the Carmel, the story is finished. I need to catch David HaMelech before he coming to the Carmel. Because if David HaMelech coming, the story is finished. So immediately, she decides to tell the servant to load 200 loaves of bread, number one. After the 200 loaves of bread, it's 2 jars of wine. I don't know, here it's nivle yain. Nivle yain, it's like a jar. They used to put them, but it's not like a jar. It more was like in a leather sack or something like that to keep them. Okay. Yeah. After that, she took 5 lamb, 5 sheep. Okay, mevushalim, cooked. What does it mean cooked? The Mefarshim explained that she filled them up with rice, with all different things inside. She make an amazing meal for them. After that, she took hamesh sa'im, 5 quantity of the fine cooked, what do you call it? Shibolim. Shibolim is a wheat, okay? Yeah. Then on top of that, she took 5 pieces of raisin from the grapes, 5 pieces long of raisin, grain. And after that, sorry?
100.
100.
For the grains.
No. What is it here? 5 אשכולות של צמוקים. Okay? ומעט צמוקים. That's 5, yeah, okay, 100. You're right. And then 200 דיבלים. What does it mean 200 דיבלים? Those are a fig. They used to put, in their time, they used to eat a lot of dry fruit, and she put them. But here it doesn't say dry. The dry fruit was the raisin. But the belim, it's also dry fruit. But it was from what they call it figs.
Yeah.
And that's what she sent to who? To David HaMelech. She said to the servant, listen, put it on the donkeys. Okay? Put all of that on the donkeys, and immediately I want you to start going. I'm following you shortly. But she didn't tell her man. Who's the man? Her husband, Naval. Asked the Mefarshim, wait a minute, there is halacha in Shulchan Aruch. If a person comes to a married woman and he asks her for donation, if it's a small donation, 100 rand, 200 rand, she can give. But when it's come to a big donation, 10,000, 5,000, she's not allowed to give a donation without consulting with her husband. How did Avigail done such a thing? Avigail took here fortune of food to David and his men without asking her husband. Said the Mefarshim, here we're talking about life or death.
Yeah.
It's not matter if to give a donation or not. If she wouldn't do that, they're definitely all dead. So therefore, she's allowed to do that. Said the Mefarshim, that's why the prophet telling you, Veleisha Naval lo yigida. And she didn't even ask a permission from Naval, because she was a clever woman. Because she knew if she gonna wait, nothing gonna left from them. And that's what she done. Rabotai, we're gonna stop here because it's 9 o'clock. Remember, we stopped in verse 20. It's a long verse, it's a long chapter. Chapter 25 is 43 verses, if I'm not mistaken. It's a long verse. Next Sunday, Be'ezrat Hashem, will continue the rest. But we learn from here something very important. We learn in that chapter something that had nothing to do with King Saul and David HaMelech. We learn about Abigail, Naval, and David. What is the connection here? Rabotai, I don't know if to say it now or maybe next week. Abigail and David, they was a match soul from heaven. And you'll see when Abigail see David how she behaved, and we'll see what's happening, how David answer her, and what's happening. David and Abigail was a match soul from the day of the creation, said the Mekubalim. We'll explain that Be'ezrat Hashem next.